Hi, thank you everyone for joining. This is Ophir Gutelzon from Unxeptable. Unxeptable is a grassroots movement of Israeli expats joined by Jewish diaspora fighting for saving Israeli democracy. I'm honored today to have Guy Rolnik to speak with us. Guy is a professor of strategic management at University of Chicago, Booth School of Business. Professor Rolnik is the founder and the former editor-in-chief of The Marker, Israel's leading business and economics newspaper. Rolnik, an award-winning journalist, has been writing about political economy of Israel for more than 30 years. Rolnik was awarded for the Sokolov Lifetime Achievement Award for founding The Marker, changing public discourse and influencing the government and legislators to undertake significant changes in the structure of the Israeli economy. Guy, thank you for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
We are here actually while the Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu is visiting London. We are seeing the picture and hearing the sounds of Israeli and Israel lovers are protesting in front of his meeting, which is definitely a unique, a new phenomena. I wanted to ask you about last Saturday. You spoke at the biggest protest so far in Kaplan Street to more than 150,000 people that were gathered there. You opened your speech by saying that you are afraid like you've never been. Why?
Well, thank you for that. The economic impact of this judicial coup, it's not a reform, it's a coup, is going to be devastating, and I guess we're going to talk about it at length soon. But this is not why I am fearful. This is not why I'm afraid. I am 54 years old. I was born in Israel in the late 60s, and myself, my family, all my generation, we have always taken the liberal and democratic values, governance, cultures, and norms of Israel for granted. Myself and my newspaper, we are fierce critics of illiberal and undemocratic players in Israel, and of course, we have a lot of critics on the occupation. But never ever in my worst dreams I thought that Israel could become an authoritarian, illiberal country. And let me be clear, this is where we are heading now. So I lived in Israel. I was born in Israel, as I said, and I lived in Israel for 45 years. 8 years ago, I moved to Chicago because I got an offer to join the faculty at the University of Chicago, as you mentioned, as a professor of strategic management. Both of my daughters and my son went to school here in the US. 4 years ago, my oldest daughter was admitted here to University of Chicago, but she decided that she wants to go back to Israel and volunteer to the Israeli military. And I was super happy, of course, with her decisions. And her sister did the same 3 years after. I always assumed that all my kids will live in a liberal democratic Israel. And the kind of Israel that is now envisioned by the people in power in Israel today is horrible. Israel will cease to be the country that we grew up in. I think that Israel, this country, will be the opposite of what Benjamin Ze'ev Herzl envisioned. If you go back and I did it recently to his writing, especially Alt-Neuland, this utopian novel that he wrote some 125 years ago. You will see clearly that the current government in Israel is essentially destroying, in an amazing speed, by the way, the Zionist project. If these bills pass, you will not be able to recognize Israel in a few years. We are moving towards something that anywhere between Poland, Hungary, and even worse, countries that I don't even want to name. What people need to understand at this point, and it might be shocking because it's happening so fast, that the package of bills presented by Yariv Levin are taken together, eliminating all the checks and balances and any countervailing force to limit the power of government in Israel. And once these bills pass, Supreme Court in Israel was basically the most important check on the power of government. As you know, we don't have a constitution. We have only one chamber of parliament. We will slide quite fast to an authoritarian regime, or worse, some kind of a dictatorship. This is not going to be a regime that is repressing or uses violence or coercion, like, I don't know, Russia or China, but this is going to be a regime that will be democratic only in name, an empty shell. Once they will consolidate so much power, it would be very easy to start tweaking the election rules, for instance. You can ban Arab parties and basically make sure that this coalition will control Israel for a very long time or even indefinitely.
Mute. So as you said, I mean, we're not seeing tanks on the streets in this judicial coup, right? But we are heading really, really fast into a constitutional crisis. Can you explain more? What does it mean?
Yeah, so we are probably already in a crisis. If you follow the news, I guess most of you follow the news, this is why you joined this call. You probably know that the Attorney General of Israel, Gali Miara Ba'arav, this morning sent a letter to Netanyahu after his, I don't call it a press conference because you know that Bibi quit doing any press conferences, I don't know, many years ago. He never takes questions from journalists, which is crazy. He only shows
Unless
up.
it's in English.
Sorry, yeah, in English. Even in English, he didn't do a lot, but yes, he's willing to take questions from foreign news outlets because they know it will be easier for him. But his announcement yesterday evening at about 8:40 p.m. Jerusalem time, he basically said that he's getting involved in the negotiation on the judicial overhaul or judicial coup, as I call it. And Miara basically told him the obvious, that this is illegal because it's a conflict of interest for him, and because he's now stands on trial, and he committed not to be involved, and there is a court ruling on that. And Bibi immediately responded, of course, not directly, always use surrogates and, people who are close to Netanyahu. His answer was pretty straightforward. I don't care. So basically he's ignoring the specific direction of the Attorney General. Now, I don't know what she's going to do. There's probably going to be appeals to Bagatz, to the High Supreme Court of Appeals. He can theoretically face heavy fines or even jail on this contempt of of a court, but I have no clue what's going to happen. Nobody has any clue what's going to happen because we've never been in this situation. You have to understand this is only the beginning, because when these bills pass, there will be appeals on each single one of them. And some of them, if not all of them, will be found by the Supreme Court to be unconstitutional because they oppose the basic laws and may be struck down by the court. At this point, the government or Netanyahu may say, well, court has no power anymore. This is what the bills are all about. And this is a point where the enforcement institution in Israel, it's the police, it's the Shabak, the Shin Bet, the Department of Justice, basically will be in a situation that we never had. And most democracies don't face. They will need to decide whose order are they going to follow, the orders of the Attorney General and the Supreme Court, or the orders of the government of Netanyahu. And I'm afraid to say that at this point, hell can break and probably will break loose. And, you know, there are all kinds of scenarios. Some of them include violence. Overnight, Israel is basically becoming a banana republic.
We heard last week, and I think that there is some recording on our channel and others of Nadav Argaman, the previous head of the Shin Bet, and he is coming first time on camera and saying that this is the biggest nightmare of his life, is that the organization will fall apart from within inside, right? Just give me goosebump just saying that.
Yeah, we are hearing it from almost all the leadership of the IDF, okay? And this is why Defense Minister Gallant contemplated on the coming out publicly yesterday and telling Netanyahu you can't do it. We hear internal, if you go to Haaretz website in English, you can read strings of people inside the military, Shabak, Mossad, you name it. The leadership, I don't know what are the percentage of, anywhere between, 50 to 90% of the leadership of all the enforcement, all the security apparatus in Israel are basically warning Netanyahu that we face existential threat if this goes through. And, reservists from all the elite units have basically said that they will not, they will not take any part of it. They will not come to do military reserve. The leaders of the most elite units in Israel most of them are now taking part. They are actively taking part in all the
protests,
in all the protests. So this is all unprecedented, is an understatement. Everyone is telling Netanyahu, you are risking the livelihood of this country. Everyone in academia, in the economists all over the world, and it seems is to all that.
Guy, I mean, like for there is a lot of people here who live in the obviously in the US, and they hear Netanyahu saying like, well, we just want to be like everyone else. We want to make sure that judges are appointed by the majority, and he's calling it a reform to rebalancing the power between the courts, the government, and the parliament. And what's wrong? What's wrong with politicians appointing judges in a system like Israel, or anywhere?
Yeah, so I'm afraid to say that Netanyahu and his coalition partners and the people, we might talk about those people, these are blatant lies, okay? So if passed, I'm not not a legal expert. If you want, I can quote our legal experts and other legal experts, but if passed, these laws will turn Israel to be probably the only country in the West that government has no restraint on power. As for the claims of Netanyahu that he keeps repeating it, that judges appoint themselves, that's a lie. Again, judges in Israel don't appoint them themselves. Perhaps if this is important, I know you already had a string of legal experts participating in these Zooms. If needed, I can share with you a short PowerPoint presentation that shows actually how it works. But basically, we don't have a constitution and in Israel, and Supreme Court is the legal advisors that they want to turn into from civil servants to political appointees are the only check on power in the way the Israel government is structured.
Yeah, that's it's and I think that's I heard also Yuval Noah Harari talking about the need to restrain power. It's not about the way you choose judges. It's about like the question we need to ask ourselves after this judicial coup: would the government would have any restraints on power, and what would it be?
No whatsoever, and not only the restraints whatsoever. People say, well, we can vote this government out in the next election. That's not the case also, because it's very important to understand that if those bills pass, the government can start changing the rules of
Election rules, yeah.
Election rules, and very importantly, we tend to forget it, what government can do, and by the way, is already trying to do even before the judicial coup, is take over the news media. Now, you have to understand, once you take over the news media, your ability to sway election is significantly emboldened. And one way to see what is the real goal of this government is to examine the a few initiatives put forward by communication minister Shlomo Karhi. So far they have failed, but he keeps pushing it, including this week. He had another press conference without journalists announcing reforms in the Israeli media. Basically, Karhi tried and proposed in the last couple of weeks to shut down or take the budget of the Israeli public broadcaster. And the idea is to siphon that money, those funds, and auction it in an auction controlled, of course, by the Ministry of Communication to corporate media outlets that are controlled by Bibi's cronies. And basically, they want to control the media. And once they will control the media, I'm afraid it's going to be game over for Israeli democracy.
And just to clarify, I mean, the indictment that Prime Minister Netanyahu is actually facing right now is all related to his wishes to control media even before that. So changing the laws just going to make it easier. And we see and it's obviously swayed the point of view of Israelis for a long time over the last 10 years, maybe since Israel Hayom, the newspaper started to work in Israel.
Yeah,
I want to take you to a question about economics. The shekel has lost some 7 to 10% since Yariv Levin announced his reform, but is still pretty strong compared to most currencies in the last decade. We don't see sign of panic among foreign investors. Why are you so concerned with the influence of these steps on the economy?
Yeah, that's a good and important point. Okay, so Israel is a very strong and rich economy. It's one of the richest GDP per capita. If you look at the numbers, it's one of the richest countries in the world, mostly because of high tech, and you all know it. What many people are not aware is that Israel also has a very strong I would call it, comparing to corporate lingo, a very strong balance sheet. It means that the debt, the national debt to GDP, the ratio is very low. It's somewhere around 60% compared to more than 100% in the US and in many European OECD country. And we also have a very big surplus of foreign exchange assets. You may call it dollars, but it's not only dollars, of course, over liabilities. Just to give you some numbers, the foreign exchange reserves of Israel, of the Bank of Israel, are more than $200 billion. I think 220 or something like that, which is almost half of the total GDP. This ratio is huge. It's probably one of the highest, if not one, the highest in the world. We have tons of foreign exchange reserves. So what it means is that it's very difficult for hedge funds and speculators to do what happens in these circumstances all over the world, when governments do really stupid things. And I mean, to attack the shekel or start dumping treasuries, government bonds. You may want to think about what happened like 6 months ago in the UK when the government of Liz Truss presented a stupid budget. And by the way, there is some connection to what's happening in Israel. I might talk about it if we have time to talk about Kohelet, the architects of this coup. Anyway, what happened is that when government does really stupid things, usually hedge fund and investors start dumping bonds in the local currency. In our situation, it's more difficult because we have a lot of reserves and low debt. Now, what it means is this government, I would say this wicked government, can burn through this cash for a while. But nevertheless, the economic consequences of this judicial coup, if passed, are going to be devastating. Just this week, the Ministry of Finance, both divisions in the Ministry of Finance that are tasked with economic projection estimated that Israel will lose hundreds of billions of dollars of economic activity and wealth in the coming years. And we're already starting to see high-tech companies that are moving to Delaware very fast, registering in Delaware instead of Israel. And we will see very quickly brain drain, mostly in high tech and later in other industry. We see that international scientific organizations will start to boycott Israel, cutting funding for Israeli researchers, and eventually some of them also will leave. We've seen what happened in other countries that government consolidated power. Now, you have to understand that while almost all the leading economists in the world, including people that don't have any connection to Israel, people that are not Jewish or anything, they all signed an announcement or a petition saying that they warn that this will have a very heavy toll on Israeli economy, including some 350 Israeli economists, basically every economist in Israel. And the amazing thing is to see Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, totally oblivious to what's happening. And, he is basically blatantly lying to the public that it's going to be okay. They had a internal discussion in the Ministry of Finance this week among all the civil servants and the professional and the staff. And basically, they told him that these steps present a huge risk to the Israeli economy. And he insisted, okay, I understand that there are threats, but tell me about the opportunities. And unanimously, everyone told him, Mr. Smotrich, there are no opportunities for that. Okay, there is only downside. But then he forced the spokesperson of the Ministry of Finance to say that we had discussions about threats and opportunities, although no one sees any opportunities here. And although almost every single economist in Israel, by the way, including the economists appointed by Netanyahu and economists that were close to Netanyahu, just the other day, one of the economists that was working for Netanyahu for years, Professor Kandel, he's not a lefty by no means, basically said that what we're going to see very soon is, these judicial steps, the judicial coup reform is a cancer on our economy. It says it's either a heart attack or a cancer. There is no other alternative here.
Guy, what you're describing right now, I mean, I remember a year ago, there was in HBO, the movie about Chernobyl. I mean, it's really feel like Chernobylization of the government on Israel. Everyone is a yes man. Everyone is trying to look on the other side and see the opportunities when everyone is telling them that the crisis is coming. It's really shocking. I mean, so Netanyahu who is Netanyahu is going to listen to? I mean, everyone was writing to him, everyone was pushing him, writing letters, professors, economists, reservists from the Israeli army, Mossad, Shabak. I mean, even 46 letters from President Biden, 46 words that Thomas Friedman was quoting. I mean, what is the role of the business sector or the rich people in that country or outside in the world in this crisis? What they can do, or what they might be, or maybe they are the reason for what's happening.
Yeah. So first and foremost, Netanyahu is not listening to anyone, and this question we always ask. In normal times, you want to ask yourself, who is he listening to? Is he getting bad advice or so on? So I would argue that that's not the problem. Netanyahu knows exactly what he's doing, that he is risking what he's risking here. And Netanyahu is trying to get out of jail. He's trying to deal with his legal problem. This is the only reason he's pushing it. Of course, he wants to stay in power, and he has a lot of pressure from his coalition members. Perhaps we're going to talk about it. As for the role of the business sector in Israel, I'll start with the business sector and perhaps later talk about the news media, which is very important to understand what's happening in politics in Israel in the last few years. So start with the people who are super vocal about what's happening in Israel, of course, are the high-tech people. I would say that 90% of high-tech leaders are taking part in the protest, either organizing against the judicial coup, some of them doing it publicly, some of them doing it quietly. I really don't know of any serious business entrepreneurs in Israel that support this reform openly. There are a few, maybe, I don't know, libertarian or people that have major disputes with had major disputes with the legal system or the courts, and sometimes that may support it, but this is a tiny minority. Now, as for, I think it's important to spend a little time, because it doesn't get a lot of attention. If you read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, or any news outlet in the US, they rarely talk about the news media ecosystem in Israel, and that has a lot to do with our politics. I think that one day historians, or perhaps we'll have someday an investigating committee to understand what enabled this coup attempt. I think that we'll find out that the social networks and the media will be a chief culprits that enable or fomented what we see here, today. Social media, and this is part of my expertise and research here at the university and in Israel. Social media is basically ripping apart Israel society, Israel politics, and muddying the public and ripping apart the public square in the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 years. We have, of course, hate, polarization, and conspiracy theories, and really symptoms that we've never seen in such a so visceral and in such a way. Most people who support the steps that are now Yariv Levin's reforms, I think, are in some way fed by or emboldened by information or social network. WhatsApp is very big in Israel, and of course we also have like crazy talk radio in Israel. Think about what happened in the US, and meaning, you know, first we had talk radio, then we had the Alex Joneses and Rupert Murdoch's Fox. And in Israel, all these emerged in like 5 to 7 years, emboldened and strengthened by the social network. So the information ecosystem in Israel got so much contaminated, toxic, and dangerous in a very short time. Now you have to understand that the starting point was not great. Some of Israeli news media was already corrupt. You mentioned the indictments of Netanyahu. Netanyahu was indicted for colluding with the people who owns the media. You know, Netanyahu was not the person to corrupt the Israeli media. Israeli media has always been much of it corporate media that has served specific interests of economic interest and political interests. So some of Israel suffers from, you know, this corrupt, profit maximizing, very concentrated corporate media. You have to understand, in Israel, we have basically the news media is 2 TV channels that are owned by oligarchs. Okay, we have channel 12, which is owned by Coca-Cola. Yes, the local bottler of Coca-Cola that also controls a bank, one of the biggest conglomerate in Israel, that needs, you know, to make sure that they are not regulated or broken up or by the government. They need to be on the good sides, on the good side of a government. And then we have Channel 13, who is owned by an Ukrainian, Russian, American billionaire who made all his money in privatization in Russia. His allies are people who are close to his former partner, close to Putin. This is how he made a lot of money. And he owns another big monopoly in Israel that also needs favorable regulation from the government. Then we have Yediot Achronot and Ynet that are owned by the Moses family, by Noni Moses. And, you know, Moses was, they used to be a declared monopoly by the antitrust authority in Israel for many years. They had sway on Israeli politics and Israeli discourse like you don't find in any Western society. And just to be clear, the editor-in-chief and the publisher of that news outlet was indicted together with Netanyahu for offering bribes to Netanyahu. We have the police find recordings of Moses, Yediot Achronot owner and editor, offering basically Netanyahu, I'm going to make sure that you will be the prime minister of Israel forever, okay, if you just eliminate competition and make sure that I will be a monopoly forever. So this is the news ecosystem, and it got much worse because news outlets and TV channels wanted to compete with this craziness that's happening on social network. And now to top that, we have our own Fox News, okay? So Netanyahu wanted to get Rupert Murdoch to come to Israel and have okay, that was interesting. And Netanyahu wanted to get Rupert Murdoch to come to Israel and to have a local version of Fox News. That didn't happen. Murdoch didn't want to do it. But we now have a Fox-like news outlet called Channel 14, which is basically a propaganda machine of Netanyahu. Almost all the anchors and pundits and commentators towing the Bibi line. And just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that they aired, and in the last 3 months, the rating has shot up dramatically. It's now sometimes the second most popular news TV channel in prime time. And just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that they air there, a couple of weeks ago, they had someone saying that some crazy conspiracy theory that the protests in Israel are somehow funded or activated by the CIA. Okay, this is primetime television, or that the Biden administration is controlled by Barack Obama, or the White House is controlled by. This is the kind of television now people in Israel get.
Right. It's a good segue to. I'll ask one more question, and then we'll open. I'll take a question from the chat. So, I would say probably most people, everyone in this call right now is actually a pro-Israeli person, and they care deeply about what's going on in Israel, and they question themselves, right? Why right now we are supposed to take sides? Is it political debate in Israel, and therefore, like the last 40 or 75 years, we should always stand with Israel no matter what and not take a stand? Or is it something different? And just to give the sense to the audience, the general attorney of the IDF, right, of the Israeli Defense Force, gave permission to soldiers, right, up to a very high rank, go on without uniforms and engage in the protest in Israel because it's not political. So what do you say to those supporters who again supported Israel all the time and they are supporting it now by fear for Israel when they need to go? What do they need to do in order to actually participate or helping us saving Israeli democracy?
Yeah. Well, what I need to have to tell you is that you need to get off the fence. With everyone I speak in Israel or outside Israel, basically I plead that this is the last call. If you stay on the sidelines or on the fence, you may wake up in a few weeks or months to see that the Israel that you love or the Israel that you deem very important to Jews all over the world is gone. This is not about right or left or conservatives versus versus liberal. This is about the destruction of Israel, and you need to act now. You know, many of the hundred or thousands of organizers of the various, you know, very creative protests that are happening in Israel. Many people are, many of those people got very little sleep in the last 2 months. People who have demanding day jobs, hundreds of people of the, you know, like that, activists and people are taking part in these protests, people who are now full-time activists, and they need your support. They need support, any kind of support in funding. They need support from the administration in the United States. They need support from Congress. They need support from US media. Now is the time to act. If you care about Israel, this is not right versus left. This is between people who love Israel and want to make sure that this continues to be, you know, we faced so many challenges before this attempted coup. You know, we don't need to talk about it. You know them, those challenges. We need a strong liberal, liberal democratic institutions in Israel. And we are facing a very, very daunting challenges. You have to understand what's happening. Everything here happened very fast, okay? Everything evolved very fast. There was like this confluence of, if you've asked me 3 or 4 or 5 months ago, can something like that happen? Probably my answer would be no. We didn't see it coming so fast, okay? This is like a confluence of forces that came together in the last 3 or 4 months. First, you know, the only people who have been actually planning it for details for years is the Kohelet people that you've probably all written. There is investigative reporting about it today in the Washington Post. This week it was also in the New York Times, in the Guardian, everywhere. This is the alt-right religious, nationalistic, libertarian think tank that is actually not a think tank, but more like a lobbying, a firm that developed this network in Israeli politics in government, and they are backed by Jewish billionaires from Philadelphia. So they're, you know, they have a vision of Israel that is very, very different from Israel that you all know. Their bosses explicitly say that they want weak courts because they don't believe in courts. And then you have, of course, Shas with Aryeh Deri that wants to be minister after his appointment was struck down by the courts. We have the ultra-Orthodox parties that for the first time sees an opportunity to normalize indefinitely their special privileges, getting taxpayers' money without serving in the army and low labor force participation. And of course, we have Ben Gvir and Smotrich that basically see this as an opportunity to get rid of the Supreme Court and get, you know, they'll be able to appropriate Palestinian land and eventually annex the territories. And Bibi needs to get out of jail card. But if you go back, and there are videos that you can see on the internet, Bibi circa 2012 is the opposite of these steps that he's now leading and taking. Bibi spoke at length many times that the power of Israel rests with the independent courts. Bibi that I know, and by the way, I know Bibi personally for many, many years. Bibi that I know would be appalled by these measure. It contradicts a lot of how he saw Israel. So it's not a right or left thing. You know, people who supported Netanyahu, who support Netanyahu in the past or support him today need to understand that this is Bibi actually doing something that he's never been doing in the past.
Thank you, Guy. Before we go to the Q&A, I want to remind everyone on the call that this weekend, we are going to have protests all over the world with the Unacceptable and Defending Israeli Democracy. I'm just going to read quickly through the cities. We're going to have in Austin, in Amsterdam, in Atlanta, in Barcelona, in Basel, in Boston, Brussels, Cambridge, Copenhagen, Geneva, Las Vegas, London, Los Angeles, Madrid, Melbourne, Memphis, Miami, Munich, New York, New Haven, Connecticut, Oxford, UK, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Princeton, Providence, Rhode Island, Rochester, San Diego, Seattle, San Francisco, Sofia in Bulgaria, Stockholm, Sydney, Tokyo, Toronto, Vancouver, Washington, and Zurich, and also in Vienna. This is a lot of activity that we are making, and we are really inviting everyone step up, tell one more friend, one more family, and come over. You will see that the people in Israel are really taking tailwind from what we are doing. And we see the politicians that are coming here are as a persona non grata, and we are going to keep doing that. So please go to unacceptable.org or to the Facebook page and join and share. And I will now take the first question. And I think Neri has a question, and then I will follow up through some of the chat question and ask on behalf of you. Neri, go ahead. You're on mute.
Thanks, Ophir. So I wanted to challenge the assumption that the world is going to respond with some economic sanctions, you know, based on what's going on now in Israel. I mean, we had a call from the BDS to boycott Israel economically. We know that the democratic world doesn't support the situation currently between Israeli and Palestinians in Israel. They didn't take a stand before. What is it based, the assumption that the world is going to respond, you know, in a way that is going to hurt the economy in Israel and not just continue doing business based on money's most important thing right now?
And I'll add on that, Guy, I'll just add on that. I mean, like the connection to investment in China or in other places, right, around the world, where people are still investing. Why would they stop investing based on values, if you want to call it?
Yes.
Yeah, let me be clear here. When I said that when all the economists are talking about how devastated it's going to be, it's not based mostly on moral consideration, okay? It's based on the fact that we start with a lot of the people in Israel, a lot of the entrepreneurs in Israel, you know, would want to leave the country or set up their companies elsewhere. Now, I don't think that, you know, business is business, and I agree people are doing business in China and in Poland. But the question is always, you know, look at China, okay? Compare China to other countries. Compare, you know, I talked with one of the biggest investors in high tech in Israel, and he told me, you know what, if you compare it to China, first of all, some people don't like to do business in China. Not all people like to do business in China. China is huge, okay? You cannot ignore most big companies. They don't like the kind of governance that we have in China, but they need to be there. But although everyone needs to be in China, if you compare the valuation of Chinese companies with American or European companies, you can see the discount, okay? Please compare the valuation of Alibaba to Amazon and see what is the heavy toll that, and think about the growth potential in China, and think about it. So, you know, I've been covering Israeli high tech for now 30 years. I still remember vividly the 90s and the 80s. That was something called when Israeli companies wanted to raise money abroad. There was the Israeli what we call the Israeli discount. In the last 5 to 10 years, it's turned into the Israeli premium, okay? It's going to be an Israeli discount again. People will continue to invest in Israel, but we will see gradual drain of talent, of the best people. We will see significant, this is long-term. Short-term, listen to what everybody all the people in the military elites are saying. We don't want to serve a country. We're talking about imminent threat for, the Air Force pilots and everything. These people have to risk their lives, and other, all the people, many people in combative positions in the army. People are telling the government, okay, we don't.
8 p.m. would be our time, right?
We don't want
is
to
a
risk
hard
lives.
time out here. That's right.
Okay, and
But it's 8 p.m. back there, I think.
let's see.
I wonder.
Well, I don't know. Is that enough, or should I write something?
I wonder.
Guys, sorry about that. Keep going.
Yeah, that's
Okay. We'll take the next question, and please, if you don't mind, unmute yourself. It's very hard for the rest. I know that you don't do it intentionally. I have a question from Yossi, who is asking, what can we do here that we are not? I mean, what is the impact of protest overseas? What can we do in order to reach out to our politician or to other foreign media? Maybe you can point us to one or two critical groups. Okay.
Ophir?
Is everybody there?
I think we lost Ophir.
He'll be back.
Okay,
Okay.
maybe I can call. I can read the question and.
No, I heard the beginning of the question. What can do? Whatever you.
Well, it sounds like I was removed from the call. It's all good. Guy,
do whatever. I was trying to. I'm starting to answer. What's happening outside Israel is super important to support the protests in Israel. There are protests happening all over the world. They are covered extensively by the Israeli media. They are putting a lot of pressure on the government and the Israeli government. And at some point, somebody is going to we almost seen it with Gallant yesterday. There are some parts of the coalitions, I don't know, 5 to 10% that are susceptible to switch side at some point. The support is also super important the closer we get to a constitutional crisis. I talk with people in government and people in parliament, and basically everyone is saying the same thing. The only force that can now change the trajectory of this locomotive is the civil society. Civil society is now, our fate is in the hands of the civil society, and it's true for civil society in Israel and civil society abroad. This is now the only significant countervailing force. You mentioned before, Marker in the podcast, I interviewed Yoav Sogalovich from Yesh Atid, and he said, I believe this coup is going to fail because of the strong civil society in Israel. There is two academics that wrote last year a book called The Spin Dictators, about the rise of semi-dictators like Orban in Hungary and in Poland and in Venezuela. And I interviewed one of the authors of that book, experts in political science and history and economics. And his take was very optimistic. He said he's not an expert in Israel, but he says, you know, the difference between Israel and other countries that drifted and democracy eroded or basically became an empty shell is that Israel have very strong social civil society. Now, civil society in Israel has weakened in the last couple of decades because the people on the liberal side, in the center or in the left, basically quit in many ways and not participate a lot in you know, civic duties, public spirited activities. And now everything is changes, and this is amazing, okay? And what we're seeing in the last few weeks. And what's happening outside Israel is also key to the strengths of Israel civil society.
Guy, we are on time, and I want to be respectful for your time. I have a question from David. David Levy is actually raising his hand quietly. David, take your question, and then I'll summarize after that. I think you're on mute. Hold on, maybe you can unmute yourself. Okay.
And now can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, because I think you muted everybody due to whoever that person is or people. Anyway, spent a year and a half in Israel in the 70s. And of course, so I'm very pro-Israeli. And of course, I want to, unlike Donald Trump, but I want to make Israel great again. So I know you're saying it isn't about politics, but it seems that politics have really swung. I mean, there's really the Meretz Party, the Labor Party. I don't understand how it is possible to get them back into some sort of coalition thing. That's one thing. And then also us Americans at home. Besides money, there's a protest Sunday here in Boston, but it's something I think we need to keep doing. It can't just be a one-off. And so I'm asking, what kinds of things can we do to organize and also get his take on the political situation in Israel?
Okay, I want to quickly say something about politics that I forgot to say. I want to give you some numbers. You know, first of all, Israel politics indeed swung, is drifting towards the to the right. There are many reasons for that. I would argue that one that is always underestimated what happened, the contribution of social networks and the kind of information ecosystem that we have in Israel, which is pretty horrible. But I want to still, even though we drifted towards being more nationalistic and ethnocentric and so on in Israel, still majority of people in Israel oppose these steps, although they are many of them being brainwashed by the junk they get on their Facebook or Twitter or WhatsApp feed. I'll give you some numbers. As for the Supreme Court, 66% of Israel think that the Supreme Court should have the power to strike down a law if it's incompatible with the basic laws. 63% of Israel think that the Judicial Selection Committee, its current in its current way, is the right way to go. and 58% of Israel oppose, making the ministry legal advisors to be political appointees. So although we lost Meretz in the last election, this is a story in itself why that happened and so on, still the majority of Israelis don't want to see those changes. This is driven by a coalition of people that have a special interest in these changes, led by Netanyahu, that just needs to get out of his legal troubles.
And I will add on that. I mean, like that on popular vote, right? Comparing to the US, I mean, it was almost 50-50. So the power that the Knesset got was mostly technically taken. And again, the government was legitimately elected by the rules that was set up for 75 years. And those who got the power, right? And any in the democratic state is supposed to transfer it peacefully. What they're doing right now is taking it peacefully, but don't want to give it back peacefully later. And that's why we are on the streets. And I want to tell you one more thing that is super important. We are seeing a huge support coming out from Jewish Americans, Jews around the world. The channels, I mean, like you hear Reform rabbi, you hear conservative people, conservative rabbis. Talk to your board members, talk to the donors in AIPAC. AIPAC is sitting on the fence right now. I mean, they definitely doing what I assume, and I hope they may be doing something on the back channels. But as Guy said, and as we are saying, don't stay silent. It's about speaking up and about being on the right side of the history.
I want to add to that very quickly, Ophir. People ask me, I've been a journalist for 35 years. I'm a professor at the university. I usually don't go and speak at political rallies. This is not what I do. And when I was asked 2 weeks ago to talk to some, 150,000 people, in a way, this is a little bit uncomfortable for me as a journalist and formerly an editor-in-chief of a newspaper. But this is not the time to hesitate about those things. This is now the time to act, okay, and get everyone that be involved in what's happening here. The fact that AIPAC is not intervening here is appalling. In my the people who are now on the fence or on the sidelines not taking part are not friends of Israel. This is my the way I look at it today.
Thank you, Guy, for joining us. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for sharing your amazing knowledge. And please join us wherever you can. Again, you have the QR code, unxeptable.org. Send us emails, send us messages on Facebook, on Twitter. This is now just about, and we are just a week before the end of the session of the Knesset. And this is the point of no return. So please stand up and speak. Thank you. The message is live on Facebook, and we will share the recording later with everyone who signed up. Have a great day and Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.
Thank you.